Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host, speaking at you from Monday, July 27th, 2026 in the space and time continuum. A little later at night, 7:30 or so Central Time. The news keeps pouring in all day, and I think I need to keep writing it down in my notebook to report it to you. But at some point, you just got to decide to go up and do the show, right? Stop writing things down and go do it. And it's just because there's such a barrage. We have called it the feces fire hose in the past. Just so many things being thrown at us all the time. And we got to be careful with that. Usually at the end of the show, I kind of talk about this, but we got to be careful. It's in the Northern Hemisphere here, it's summertime. Actually, it's pretty brutal in a lot of places. It's 97 degrees here in Minnesota. And, you know, a big heat wave. And it's dangerous heat going on in the United States right now. I love the hottest of the hot summer weather myself, but I don't want to be selfish. Some people, you know, they're having a hard time. Some people don't have air conditioning and things like that. Even though I have air conditioning, I've been sitting out in the backyard. That's where I do my research in the summertime, my laptop, my notebook, and I was out there even today. I'm an anomaly as far as that goes, I guess. I don't want to focus on so much of the negative stuff. We're getting so sick of Donald Trump. On Friday night, he was at the correspondents' dinner doing things like, and then they said, darling, she said, darling, come upstairs and make love to me. And then he said, I can come up the stairs, but then I can't I can only do one of those things. I can only do one of those things. Wow, who wrote this? Even he knew how much he was sucking at the correspondents' dinner on Friday night. That's actually a joke that he told that I guess somebody wrote for. He never pre-reads anything, right? So we're getting sick of his absolute stupid, fucking childish, narcissistic idiot. And then they said, affordability. They said affordability. They made up a word. It's not even a word. I said, what's affordability? And they said, affordability. We're sick of it. Can't stand it anymore. So let's talk about some positive things. Here's something that's, I think, incredibly interesting. You know how all of these cabinet members, when they're going through their Senate approval committee hearings and all of this kind of stuff, and they're always asked by Democrats, who won the 2020 election? And what is their answer? Is their answer, Joe Biden won the 2020 election? No, it is never that. Their answer is usually, and almost always, well, on January 20th, 2021, Joe Biden was certified as the president, and then he became the president. No, I want to know who won the election of 2020. Joe Biden was certified as president in January of 2021. No, that's not the question I asked. Who won? So, Todd Blanche was asked, who won the election, the presidential election in 2024? This was questions that then he answered as submitted in writing as part of his approval, because they're trying, they're trying to put him into the permanent attorney general seat at the DOJ, as I'm sure you probably know that. But in these questions that were submitted to him, one of the questions was, who won the presidential election in 2024? Was his answer Donald Trump? No. His answer was Donald Trump was certified president on January 20th of 2025. Todd Blanche knows. You know. I know. Donald Trump did not win the election in 2024. Todd Blanche knows that. And these answers were submitted under oath. If he lied in any of these answers, now, especially now that they're on paper, he knows that he would be found guilty of perjury. And he knows Donald Trump is not going to be in power very much longer. And he knows he's going to be out in the cold when that happens. So how did he answer that question? Did he say Donald Trump won the election in 2024? No, because he would have perjured himself. Because he knows Donald Trump did not win the election in 2024. Let's talk about the 2026 elections for a moment. Emerson polls. Now, you know how we feel about polling here, right? In 2024, the polls showed that Kamala Harris was going to win overwhelmingly. I thought the polls were underestimating the extent of her win, not just hers, but other Democrats as well. Now, there were a lot of Democrats who outperformed her, and that's because their votes weren't messed with. Hers were. None of these polls were wrong, and nor was I, nor was you. In your gut, your true feelings, you knew there was no way Donald Trump could win that election. You knew Donald Trump did not win that. Something was wrong. Anyway, we've talked about that before, but polling right now, polling was correct actually in 2024. I still think they were underestimating what was going to be her win, but Emerson polls, very reliable polling, has Dems up right now in a generic poll by 11 points. In 2018, let's go back in time. 2018, the midterm elections in Donald Trump's first term, where Democrats outperformed everybody's expectations and took over everything. At this time, in late July, in 2018, Emerson polling was between +7 and +9 points for the Democrats. And right now, they're up 11. Fox polls right now in generic polling has Democrats up +7 points. That's where it was in 2018. Now, Dems have been overperforming polls for years now in all of these weird elections where nobody's expected to show up, but instead they do. And who does? Democrats. In all of these special elections on a Tuesday in the middle of July or June or August, for the last many years now, Democrats have been overperforming what polls had by 10 to 15 points. If Emerson polling has a generic poll, Democrats are up by 11 right now, and then Democrats overperform by 10 to 15 points, that's a bloodbath for the Republicans, and that's why they're acting the way they're acting. Trump's negative approval, every poll since March 25th of 2025, he has not been above water in any poll about any subject or issue in approval ratings since March 25th of 2025. He might not know what that means, but other Republicans do, and they are absolutely scared shitless about these midterm elections, and that's why they're trying to mess with them. That's why they're trying to cheat. That's why Donald Trump's doing speeches about how our elections are totally rigged. They were totally rigged in 2020. And he skips over 2024, that they were rigged in 2024. He doesn't talk about that, but He wants us to not trust the results of these midterm elections. He's throwing all kinds of lawsuits, and he's losing. He's trying to get voter data. He's trying to do a scheme where we looked at voter data, and there's all of these. Ilhan Omar is registered 90,000 times, and there's 90,000 votes in Minnesota that are all Ilhan Omar, who should be gone from our country. She really should be. Everyone would love to see her gone. That's what he's trying to do, and he's trying to, in asking for this voter data, he has lost now, I think it's up to 17 times in 17 states, where the judicial system, as messed up as it is with the Supreme Court, but in lower courts, they're saying, no, you can't have voter data files. No, you're not getting it. So the timing and everything seems to be kind of perfect. They started maybe too early, maybe too late. I don't know, but it's not working. All of their schemes are getting thwarted. And it's looking like midterm elections, I don't know, unless it's finally put out and everybody realizes that the 2024 election was stolen by Donald Trump and that Kamala Harris was supposed to be president for the last year and a half, and something changes and we need to change elections before November. Now it's looking, I don't know, we're only 99 days away. So if these elections go the way that they're supposed to go, it's going to be an absolute more than 2006, more than 2018, more than in the 1930s and 40s, a complete bloodbath for Republicans. Things are going in the right direction. They really are. Be careful of where you take information in, because the mainstream media wants you to be scared, wants you to be nervous. Otherwise, you don't watch them anymore. And you go outside and enjoy the weather. You go for a walk. You hang out with the people you love. You listen to music. You play music. You do the things you want to do in your life. Mainstream media doesn't want you to do that. They want you to be stuck on your phone or on your TV or on your laptop watching them. They're desperate too. But they're turning as well because they can see the future. And that is getting very interesting. Let's take a short break and come back and talk about some of that stuff. Satellite View. Find our website, satelliteviewpodcast.com. And you can sign up to be on our email list. And you can also see what's going on with the show. Also, you can find out what's going on with the show, and you can watch video of the show on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and search for Satellite Podcast. And then subscribe to the channel. It's free. And you can also find me at Todd Mikkelson on Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, other places. On Facebook, our page is at Mikkelson Politics. Don't ask me why it's different. It's a long story from long ago. Anyway, yes, go find us. Tell your friends. Let's try and spread the word. Let's try and make people realize that we don't need to be afraid and negative and feeling like we're controlled, because we are in control. We are taking control. All right, where should we start? Here's something that I just came across this afternoon. Scott MacFarlane reports. Now, Scott MacFarlane worked for CBS, and he quit because CBS was becoming Fox News. And he ended up moving over to Midas Touch Network. And now he's got his show that is within the Midas Touch Network, as is Katie Fang's, who's working a lot on the Epstein files. Katie Fang was let go from MSNBC because she was a woman of color, and now she's on Midas Touch Network as well, and she's doing way better work than she was allowed to do on MSNBC, as is Scott MacFarlane doing there as well. He did this story today talking about shadow hearings that the Democrats are holding about all kinds of topics. So the majority, meaning mostly James Comer, it's not my fault Donald Trump's a criminal, it's not my fault, I can't have the committee hearings against Donald Trump, it's not my fault he's threatening my family like a mobster, it's not my fault. I'd love to prosecute him, but it's not my fault. He's threatening me. He's a mobster and I can't do anything. He's not holding hearings. The Democrats are holding hearings, but they're not these official hearings that need to be called by James Comer. That's not my fault. So they call them shadow hearings, but they're still in a committee hearing room, and they even have... sometimes they fill the room with these shadow hearings. I didn't really know about this. That's how they got the victims or the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein to testify more than what the Republicans wanted them to testify. They had these shadow hearings, and C-SPAN will actually put them on TV, on C-SPAN. They're a real hearing. They're just not official senatorial or House hearings. It's interesting in a lot of ways. So there are still like clips that can go viral, for instance. Here's one that I want to play for you now. This is a woman. Her name is Pam Hemphill, and she was a January 6th insurrectionist. And the Democrats had one of these shadow hearings and called her as a witness, and this is part of her testimony.
My name is Pam Hemphill. I'm a mother and a grandmother and a cancer survivor and a retired addiction counselor. I am also a convicted criminal for what I did on January the 6th, 2021. Thank you for having me back to the Capitol today. I am deeply grateful for this chance to try to make amends and talk about what happened 5 years ago. Once I got away from the mega cult and started educating myself about January the 6th, I knew what I did was wrong. I pleaded guilty to my crimes because I did the crime. I received due process, and the DOJ was not weaponized against me. When Donald Trump pardoned us, I rejected the pardon. Accepting that pardon would be lying about what happened on January the 6th. I am guilty, and I own that guilt.
Pretty incredible. You may have heard of her before, but I think she did a great job of testifying there. That's somebody who is a complete Trump. She said she was in the cult. So we got to be careful sometimes about some of these people. She's on our side now. And she actually willingly paid the price for what she did wrong. She saw that what she did was wrong. I don't need to repeat what she said. She did it in her own words way better than what I'm doing right now. But wow. I'm just thinking, wow. Now, we love tacos, right? We love tacos. Taco Tuesday is usually a day. But this last week, we had Taco Friday. Donald Trump was sending, there were M1 bombers he sent to the Middle East. He was escalating. He was sending more troops. He was going to start a ground war, it seemed like. this last Friday, just 3 days ago. More countries were poised to get involved. We were going to use airfields in the UK because the new prime minister is like, yeah, sure, you can use our airfields to commit war crimes. And China and Russia and then Saudi Arabia and a lot of these other countries were like, okay, we're going to get brought into this. UK, we're going to get brought into this. What does that sound like? A worldwide war? A world war? Countries from all over the globe getting involved in this war? World War III? That's kind of how it happens. Now, there were admirals and generals who had a little conversation with the dumb fucking twerp idiot baby shithead that we call the president of the United States right now. For one thing, we have no more munitions. Now they're trying to blame that on, when we came in, Biden got rid of all of the bullets, all of the missiles. Yeah, because he was waging wars. No, he wasn't. Keg Breath and Donald Trump have basically taken all of our munitions and used them up in these stupid, idiotic things that they're doing, including shooting at fishing boats down by Venezuela. There is a prosecutor working on some of those cases from family members of people who were killed in these war crimes that Keg Breath and Donald Trump were doing down in Venezuela starting at the beginning of the year or even the end of 2024. This prosecutor was assassinated in the middle of a street in the middle of the day. You also heard about, maybe you didn't, Daniel Syed, another guy who was a quote-unquote model recruiter for Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. He was found dead in his home in, I think, France. He was 69 years old. He looked healthy. He looked like he worked out. Do you just have a heart attack in your house? Also, Jean-Luc Brunel was found dead. He was also one of these quote-unquote model recruiters who was under investigation, as was Daniel Syed, for raping children. And, of course, Jeffrey Epstein was found committed suicide in supposedly the most secure cell in the world. Jean-Luc Brunel found committed suicide in his jail cell in France, I think in 2002. They're killing all of the witnesses to everything because they're mobsters. Donald Trump is a mobster. They're murdering these people. What happened exactly? Why have we not seen the final death certificate of Lindsey Graham? People start to think, well, Todd's turned into a conspiracy theorist. I think Lindsey Graham actually did have a heart attack. I don't think he was poisoned. But there were people who did, including the coroner and the people who did not want to put out his death certificate after his autopsy until they saw all of the toxicology, which takes a few days more. So we would have heard about that by now. Why haven't we? And also, Mitch McConnell, he's not at the hospital anymore. You know why? Because he's dead. He's dead. I'm not saying they killed him because he was already turning against them. But, I mean, he was, look at him. We all knew he was. Anyway, so Trump did not start World War III on Friday. It was Taco Friday. And we love tacos. We love tacos here. By the way, Mitch McConnell's hometown newspaper printed his obituary. That's how sure people are. Anyway, oh my God. The Epstein thing is bubbling up, and it's bubbling up huge in France right now. Katie Fang is all over it. And Todd Blanche has to show up himself by 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday and bring in certain unredacted files and show his work on why they were redacted. That's a court order. Who knows if they're going to stick to it? They just seem to not stick to court orders. Here's another thing. In trade markets, which people bet on things like elections. Netanyahu's opponent is named Gadi Eisenkot. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Eisenkot is winning in the trade markets because there's an election in Israel. Netanyahu, that's why he wants constant war, so that elections can be called off, because he knows he's going to lose. Right now, his opponent is at 51% and Netanyahu's at 36%, and these trade markets have a 64% chance of Netanyahu losing this election, because people know there are things about the Charlie Kirk assassination thing. There was debris found in the gun barrel in testimony in these hearings, which means that the guy who's accused of killing Charlie Kirk could not have shot that gun. That gun could not have been shot that day. You know, talk about the assassinations, quote unquote, of Donald Trump. Why do we not talk about all this stuff anymore? Why do we not know the names of the two guys who were supposedly rescued? One of them walking more than 100 miles in the middle of the mountains with, I think, a broken leg? Why do we not even know who those guys are in the Iran war? Why are they're covering up the amount of injured and dead in the Iran war? The Pentagon, keg breath. They're lying to us about all this. Donald Trump put up signs. He wants to put up signs at the Smithsonian Museum saying, this museum is a hoax. It's been here for 200 years and it's a hoax. The Smithsonian is a hoax. It's a Democrat. It's much like affordability. Nobody ever heard of the word. Nobody ever heard of the word affordability. They said affordability. And the Smithsonian is the same hoax as affordability. It's just, he's demonstrating now how much of a stupid fucking idiot he is. And he's losing all support from all of his supporters. There are interviews constantly now of people who I voted for him 3 times, and most of them just say, I'm really disappointed. I'm really disappointed in this war. I don't know what the polling against the war is insane. All of this, it's just things are turning. We've been talking about it now. Of course, it's like I've been talking about it with you for a long time. And you're probably feeling like, okay, things are turning. When do the results happen? Well, I think the Democrats are really poising to hit the ground running after the midterm elections. You're going to see some pretty amazing things. By the way, I also wanted to mention, here's the mainstream media trying to keep you scared. Troy Jackson, who in Maine now is running against what's her concerned. I'm very concerned. She sounds like a dance remix now because this is how she talks. And she obviously has some physical problems. I don't want to make fun of that, but why are you still running? That's what I'm talking about. If you're this far gone and you're going further and further, you're going to be in your 80s by the time you retire. Even if you retire after this term, you promised you were only going to do 2 terms. You're on your 6th. You're a liar. Anyway, Troy Jackson now has taken the place of Graham Plattner. And the Republicans are saying, well, the Democrats, Graham Plattner with all of his... Okay, he had a message, and they're focusing on the fact that he did sexual assault and had these accusations against him, and then the Democrats threw him out. Troy Jackson doesn't have a history of sexual assault, but he has the same messaging as Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner himself said, this is not about any one person. This is not about me. This is a movement. And Troy Jackson's taking over that movement. He was confirmed to be now by the Democrats in Maine. He's confirmed to be the official candidate to run against Susan Collins for Senate in Maine. That approval happened on Saturday. By the end of Sunday, he had raised $2 million from 58,000 contributors. So this is not big money. This is regular people giving what they can. 30,000 of these 58,000 were new contributors. And they're saying, can he get a campaign up and running? Okay, he just raised $2 million in less than 24 hours. He's got 30,000 new Maine regular people giving him money, 58,000 small contributors, adding up to $2 million in one day. Yes, he's going to. Maine is so finished with Susan. I'm very concerned. Kavanaugh told me that he would never do this, and she's a liar, and they're sick of being lied to. She votes with Trump 95% of the times. So they don't take her BS anymore about being an independent. They want something different. And again, I had somebody ask me about the electability of Peggy Flanagan here in Minnesota, and I'm like, okay, same as in Maine, here, statewide election in Minnesota. Republicans haven't won a statewide election since 2006. Again, my dog Tucker, great guy. My dog Tucker could beat Susan Collins. He would beat Susan Collins formidably. He will beat any opposition in Minnesota. By the way, it looks like my pillow guy is going to be the Republicans' candidate for governor in Minnesota. Okay? Against Amy Klobuchar. She's going to get, like, if it's possible to get more than 100, let's go into Trump land. She's going to get 600 or 700%, maybe 800, maybe 1,200% of the vote. My dog Tucker will win these elections, and he died in March. So stop being scared, all right? Be careful where you're getting your news. Just stop listening to the mainstream news. MSNBC, I've been listening to them in my car a little bit, kind of monitoring what they're saying. They're catching up to us. They're catching up to us. When Starmer left the prime ministership in the UK, 2 months ago now, they were saying it was because of Brexit. Katie Tur said it's because of Brexit. Well, now Alicia Menendez has a show, and she finally said what we said and what other people were saying, but not MSNBC, not the mainstream media. But Alicia Menendez said the other day that he left because of his problems with one of his appointees being tied to the Epstein files. That's what we said here. They're catching up. They're catching up to us. They're starting to report things like, yeah, Troy Jackson's going to win against. They're reporting on Susan Collins and how horrible she has been in the Trump era. They're starting to report some of the same things. They're starting to talk about some of the same things that we're talking about here. And what other people like Scott McFarlane talks about on Midas Touch and Katie Fang talks about in the Epstein files. So even the mainstream media is starting to see that they got to stop lying and they can no longer fearmonger you. But there are better sources than them. Just skip over them. I monitor them so that you don't have to, but hey, I keep telling you, find Midas Touch Network on YouTube. Get your information from there. Aaron Parnes, another great source of information, who's also part of of that network. So careful where you get your information. You do not need to be nervous about these elections. It's going to be a blowout. We just got to make sure that they don't successfully cheat, and everybody's working on it. A lot of great people are working on it. Jamie Raskin he's putting up, starting investigations now so that they're well, down the road by the time the Democrats take charge. What would be January? So, yeah, this show was a bit discombobulated. There's just so much to talk about. It's like organizing it. I just kind of feel like we just need to talk about it. So thank you again for sticking to the end with me. Let's stick together, keep each other sane. Remember to enjoy your life. Don't get too wrapped up in all of these things, all of this news. I'll keep wrapped up in it. And by the way, it makes me feel good because it's positive. Overall, when I see what's going on with all of this, when I really look into what's really happening, it's very positive. I'm very optimistic because I'm well informed about what all of this stuff is going on. I'm not just stopping at listening to mainstream corporate media. I'm digging in and finding out more information, and it's like, oh, here's what's really going on. And when I find that out, it makes me feel good about our future. And that's what I'm trying to report to you here. So thank you for listening. I will be here with you again next week.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.